blow your pepper. You can blow that. But I can it a little bit because if there's anyone drinking it,
Hi, Ken.
Hey, everybody. I'm just going to say hi and turn off. I like your backgrounds. Those are awesome. Why don't I have that?
That's my little island that I'm going to retire to, Ken. Tika, is that Matuku?
Tika, you're muted.
Matuku.
All right, let's go.
Sorry, gentlemen,
retiring.
to play the video now.
Right.
Before we start, thank you.
Okay.
So far, we have 45 participants, so I'll go ahead and start the video.
By communities, especially in the Pacific. We urgently need to adapt. The Kiwa initiative believes nature-based solutions help adapt to climate change and preserve biodiversity for the well-being of communities. Food security, health, disaster mitigation, economic resilience, closing the gender gap. Nature-based solutions for climate change adaptation come with many benefits. Let's support nature, humbly, responsibly, respectfully, with solidarity with the people of the Pacific, today and tomorrow. Let's build the Kiwa Initiative community together.
Over to you, Etika.
Start, boy. Good morning, participants. Good morning, partners, colleagues across the Pacific. This is the Kiwa Initiative project, local projects that is awareness that is currently being run by IUCN on behalf of the gracious donors from EU, AFD, Australia, New Zealand. We're so excited that we've come to this stage where we will start our first awareness on this grant mechanism. So we are very grateful that you have all registered and joining us this morning. Just like any of our Pacific meeting, we always start to acknowledge our Creator with a word of prayer and pause and just being grateful for the gift of life and the gift of creation that have been given to us. So with that, I will invite one of our colleagues, Reverend James Bhagwan, to say a recorded prayer for us this morning before we go into the official welcome. Let's play the prayer from Reverend James Bhagwan.
And my apologies for having to send in this recorded prayer, but I have unfortunately a funeral to conduct today. Nevertheless, it's a pleasure to share something and lead us in a short prayer before this very important workshop for the Kiwa initiative, something I believe personally will be very important to our Pacific people in the context of climate resilience. in the book of Genesis, right after the flood, we see in Genesis chapter 8, verse 21, after Noah and his family come out of the ark and offer their sacrifice, where God smells the pleasing aroma of the sacrifice in Genesis chapter 8, verse 21, and says in his heart, "Never again will I curse the ground, because as humans, even though every inclination of the human being is evil from childhood, and never again will I destroy all living creatures as I have done, as long as the earth endures." We're reminded that in Romans 8:15, we are recognized as the children of God, no longer slaves. And so we have been liberated from bondage. Yet we are able to hear the groans of creation. We are able to recognize our part as Christians, particularly in the redemption of creation. We groan as the earth groans, we hear the groans of the earth, and we do our part in redeeming the earth. In 2019, at the Pacific Island Leaders Forum in Tuvalu, the late president of the church in Tuvalu talked about God's promise and covenant with himself. And this covenant that we know as the rainbow covenant, not to destroy the earth, is not one that he made with us, which is dependent on us keeping some covenant. This is God covenanting to himself. So our role in this time as we face climate change is about making ourselves or our relationship right, both with God and with creation. Our sin as human beings is the severing of the sacred thread that connects us to creation. We are not separate from it. We are part of it. And you have heard me say this many times in many of the IUCN reflections. We groan with creation. It also, this relationship with creation connects us to God. We cannot have a relationship with God, a right relationship with God, if we do not have a right relationship with creation. And so we groan with creation, we groan for justice, we groan for restoration, and we groan for life. People of the land, the forests, people of the sea, the oceans, stand together in the context of protecting this place, our Pacific, our home. And we need to break the system of injustice, extractivism that takes everything and then says to us that there is scarcity, that destroys everything and then says that there is not enough room, that sells everything and tells you to pay for what already belongs to you. We have been turned into consumers and not stewards of the earth. This severs the connection with creation, says that what happens in the environment is not our concern. In this evil system, even humans are a commodity. We are being remade into slaves. And Christ transforms us from being a passive commodity to active agent on behalf of a liberating God, from a transactional relationship to God to a right, loving, empowering, harmonious, peaceful relationship with God. And so as we reflect and you begin your workshop today on climate resilience through the Kiwa initiative, thinking about the different ways of participation, the different communities that can be supported, let us pray for God's guidance in this work, to release people from the slavery of the system, to help them into right relationships with creation and with God and with each other, so that there will be abundance in their lives and not scarcity. Let us pray. We thank you, O God, for this gathering, people inspired by your Spirit, inspired by the groaning of creation, committed to helping others to use the gifts of indigenous knowledge and science, structured mechanisms, and community to protect and build resilience. Loving and embracing God, as we gather today, we who celebrate and identify with your creation, who groan with your creation, We acknowledge your presence, your life-giving spirit which hovered over the face of the water before the earth was formed. Your wisdom is needed, O God. Your voice needs to be amplified as we see the destruction of your planet, of your ocean, the second lung of this planet. As we hear the words of the 21st century prophets, climate scientists, who warn us about the potential loss in our region and of our lives, we ask, O God, that you strengthen us. Arm us with knowledge of the present, arm us with the knowledge and the wisdom from the past to strengthen our resilience for the future. We pray, O Lord, for this meeting and what will be discussed. And we pray, O Lord, as they work towards the launch of this initiative. We pray for those who will apply for these grants and for those communities that will be supported. Above all, O Lord, we pray that in this work, there will be another strand woven into the net that protects all Pacific community, human and non-human, and that Pacific people and places together will thrive and flourish. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Naka.
We are grateful for Reverend James Bagwan. He's not with us this morning. He has pre-recorded his prayer, but we'll express our thankfulness for his continued support to the work of conservation in the region, bringing the spiritual element as we reminding us of our responsibility again this morning to nature. I would like to invite our next our speaker that will give the welcome remark, Mr. Mason Smith. A short introduction. Mr. Mason Smith is the Regional Director for IUCN Oceania Regional Office. He is a career civil servant before he joined us, a diplomat. IUCN is so grateful that Mason have joined us in this conservation agenda in the region. He also brings with him his experience in the private sector and joining the dots of conservation in the region. Also, may I mention, before he joined us, he was the Permanent Secretary for Agriculture here in Fiji, and a lot of the topics of this adaptation links well with his experience. Mason, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Without further ado, please give us some words of welcome and remarks.
Thank you, Tika. Thank you, Padre, for those words of wisdom. Everyone, welcome to this Kiwa Initiative awareness session. I can see on the screen there's about 85 participants for this session, linking in from the region. So welcome to everybody. Allow me to, at this stage, thank Tika and Amelia and the team for organizing this awareness event. A special welcome to you, Amelia. For those that do not know, Amelia joined us a few weeks ago as the Kiwa Initiative Grants Officer. So welcome aboard, Amelia. We are also recruiting 2 additional staff, one a capacity building officer and an ESMS officer. And so in another few weeks' time, we hope to welcome the Kiwa Initiative team on board so that they can start doing the work that they need to do. At this stage, allow me to articulate a few acknowledgements. First of all, to our colleagues in New Caledonia, the AFD Secretariat, donor representatives who are on the call with us this morning, government representatives, NGOs, local partners, including, of course, our partners from SPC and SPREP. Again, a big Mbuluvinaka and welcome to this awareness session. I guess, allow me just to explain the objectives of this session. There's 4 basic activities that we want to do this morning. First of all, to raise the awareness of the Kiwa Initiative as a project, including both SPC, SPREP, IUCN and the AFD Secretariat, but more importantly, to drill down on the local component of the Kiwa initiative, which is the small grants program, which has been run by IUCN. And secondly, to provide potential grantees with a better understanding of the eligibility criteria, the timelines, the processes that one has to go through when applying for grants under the small grants program. And then last but not the least, to answer any of the queries that you might have either in this session or in the following session, which we understand will also happen tomorrow. I also understand that an awareness session was held yesterday with our colleagues at the IUCN French National Committee for the overseas French territories. And as I mentioned, another one will be held tomorrow. We are also inviting everyone to join us next Tuesday, the 22nd of July at 9 a.m. Fiji time, as we launch the actual call for proposals for the local projects component of the Kiwa initiative. So with that, allow me just to encourage everybody to participate actively either through the Q&A sessions or using your chat box to ask questions to the staff that will try and answer as much as possible the questions that you have. So before I hand over again to Etika and the team, and perhaps to spice up the session this morning, I have in my hand here, if you can see it, a bottle of wine. So what I will do this morning is to ask one quiz question, and the process is as follows. If you're going to answer the question, go into your chat box and answer the question directly to Seruaya, who will, if your question is correct, put your name in a hat, and at the end of the session, Amelia will draw out the winning name for the bottle of wine. I hope that's clear to everybody. I will ask the question. If you're interested in answering, go to the chat box, click Seruaya's name, and then submit your answer to Seruaya. She will check if it's correct. She will put it in a hat, and at the end of the session, Amelia will draw the winning person. So with that, let me ask the question. In the Pacific, there is a number of myths and storytelling that has been passed down by generations. We also use common names like the Moana to describe the vast Pacific Ocean. The Kiwa initiative is based on a Polynesian or a Maori word. Can you describe what Kiwa means in this Polynesian language? Again, can you describe what the Kiwa word means in the Polynesian or the Maori language? Send your answers to Seruaya. She will collate your answers, put them in a hat, and Amelia will draw it at the end of this session. Pinaba Levu, sit back, relax, and enjoy the awareness session. Pinaba Levu.
Naka Amelia. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mason. Thank you very much for the acknowledgements and the words of welcome to the participants, the donors, our partners. We'll move. Oh yeah, for the wine. Looks like because of COVID, we'll have to keep it for you until you come to Fiji when COVID lifts. But we'll pass it to Amelia just to run through our ground rules in how we're going to run the meeting in terms of the virtual and the interaction. Amelia?
Before we go to Amelia, Etika, one IT issue. A lot of panelists cannot see Seruaya's name. So can that be fixed and so that they can submit their answers to the question? And it's a bottle of red wine, and we will try and get it to the winner, whether you're in Fiji or in the region. We will find a way to get the bottle of red wine across to you.
Okay, Amelia, let's go through the ground rules and we'll fix your votes, your answers.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Etika. Once again, welcome everyone. We are glad that you were able to join us this morning. I believe in the email that had been sent out last night contains a basic housekeeping for all of us, but just to add on to that, throughout the session, as you can see the program before you, we've done with our greetings, opening prayer and welcome remarks. Straight after this, Etika will lead us into the presentations as presented before you. And throughout the presentation, please feel free to ask questions. You will see on your devices, there is a Q&A feature. You can submit all your questions through the Q&A feature. And during the breaks throughout the presentation, we will have Q&A sessions, as you can see there. After the overview of Kiwa Initiative Local Projects component, there is a Q&A session. We will be taking at least 4 to 5 questions. And after that, we will continue with the presentation, and we will have a final Q&A session at the end of this webinar. And again, as I've mentioned throughout the presentation, feel free to send in your questions. We have a team who will be screening the questions. Again, after this, Etik will probably reiterate the upcoming webinars that will be set up for more information to be sent out to potential grantees. So please do not feel overwhelmed by the amount of information that will be sent out through this webinar. So again, those questions that will be coming in, they will be screened, and we will only select questions that we feel will be beneficial to everyone. Specific questions we will keep, and you can also send an email to the Kiwa Initiative email address. We'll provide that in the chat box straight after this for more specific questions. So that is basically our housekeeping for this webinar. And again, if you find any problems, please feel free to message us, and we'll be glad to help you. Thank you. Back to you, Etika.
Okay. Thank you, Amelia. I hope you know what to do. So the questions, you can send it to the Q&A, and our team will please continue sending your questions. I can see more on the chat. Everybody's distracted with a bottle of wine. But we'll go right into the presentation. Let me just share my screen. Okay, I hope everybody's seeing the Amelia, can you see the presentation? Is it coming through?
Yes, Etika.
Okay, there have been some question whether it's blurry to the participant. I wonder if it was coming from the ICN team. But welcome again, everyone. As mentioned, this is our first awareness, so we don't expect you to get all the information about the grants. We will run this exactly the same awareness again tomorrow, so you'll have another opportunity to listen in maybe different sections that are not clear. So what we'll do a introduction of the Kiwa initiative, as in the big initiative that covers the 3 components of the local, regional, and technical, for you to have an idea. I would assume some of you may have had interaction with the other components in applying for the grants. So we'll do that overview, and then we'll go right into the Kiwa Initiative Local Projects component, its goals and objectives, the types of grants. We'll spend a lot of time this morning to introduce you to the eligibility, the type of action, the types of organization, and the eligibility criteria. And then I will ask Amelia to brief you on the application process. What we will do is after the eligibility discussion and the grant types, we'll pause for Q&A. So you can be sending your questions on the eligibility question. Then we'll pause after the eligibility slides to take questions. And then after that, Amelia will present the application process and also have another Q&A. Let me move on to the overview of the Kiwa Initiative. So the Kiwa Initiative, the theme or the broad goal is biodiversity protection and climate change adaptation using nature-based solution. Later in the slides, we will share with you the definitions of some of these terms if you're not familiar with. The Kiwa Initiative broadly have three components. The local projects component, which we are doing this morning, which will focus on the very small to medium grants, the large regional grants, and the technical assistance. As I mentioned, we are not doing the presentation on those this morning, but we can direct you of where to get the information if needed. So those are the list of donors for this, for the broad Kiwa Initiative, and we are very grateful for the support that have been given to our region, with a total budget of 35 million, which was officially launched in 2020. For eligible countries, there are 19 eligible countries, and I will go into the detail of that relates to the local component. Just on the left side, those are the expected outcomes for the partners such as IUCN, SPC, and SPREP. For us, is to improve funding access for nature-based solution is one of our key outcome. Because of the study and feasibility study that was carried out by AFD, one of the key issues has been the access of climate funds, especially at the local level. So as Mason mentioned, we are going to hire a capacity building officer. IUCN will provide a lot of capacity building. Apart from getting access to the grant, we hope that after the 5-year partnership with all of you and in the region, we will see some increase in capacity of local NGOs, civil society, our local authority as in government to access funds for their climate adaptation. So that's one of the objectives that we are also targeting, that we will increase our capacity in accessing grants. We'll go slow in our presentation this morning so that we can have a really good picture of what we're doing. So that is just in terms of the three components from local projects, the technical assistance, and large projects. Let's go into the details of the local projects component. The overall objective is really the strengthening of resilience of the Pacific Island countries. And so in terms of the overall objectives, the importance of looking at the resilience of our ecosystems, our economies, and our livelihoods or communities in effect to climate adaptation or climate change. And of course, our specific objective that I mentioned in accessing the grants for climate adaptation. So those are the high level and specific objective for this component. In terms of the types of grants, we have the very small grant, which goes from 25 to 50,000 euros. For that one, initially we thought 12 months, but we've extended it a bit to be up to 18 months. It gives opportunity for us to implement those 50,000 euros range. And then the small, which goes from 50,000 to 100,000, and the medium, 50,000 to 100,000, we up to 24 months for the duration, and then the medium for up to 36 months. You don't have to go to the maximum. You can put in proposals that suit the period. That's why it's up to those. If you can implement it in 12 months, good. And then we have, I'll talk more about the ODA eligible countries and French territories. We do have a allocation in terms of the amount as our target. For eligible countries, there are 19 eligible countries, and it pretty much covers all of our PICTs and OCT countries. For ACPs, we are thinking of having strategies that target Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia, and OCTs for French Polynesia, New Caledonia, and Wallis and Futuna. At this stage, may I introduce our IUCN partner, which is Mason mentioned, the French IUCN French National Committee, who will be our implementing partner in facilitating the overseas territories, the French overseas territories that are under OCTs. And we are very grateful that they are partnering with us. And of course, because they also speak the language and they have had a lot of experience in working with the French territories. For eligible grantees, the grant covers the wide range of stakeholders in our region, from local civil society organization, community-based, the international non-governmental organization, and local and national public institution and authorities of government. So there is a wide eligibility for the across the board in terms of climate adaptation and nature-based solution. So those are the eligible countries. Our strategy in targeted efforts for the ACPs, which is IUCN Oceania, will take the lead in supporting the ACP countries, and with our partner French National Committee in the OCTs. Let me move into the types of action or projects. it's important for us at this stage to really, in terms of the types of projects that you're thinking of. I think most of us would have had already thinking of the concepts that you're thinking of. So in terms of the types of projects, the grant will target projects that will meet the main objective of this component, which is nature-based solution and climate adaptations. Looking at projects that employs cost-efficient nature-based solutions to achieve right-based, gender-sensitive, and socially inclusive and measurable benefits for climate adaptation. In short, it's projects that integrates across the important societal issues, biodiversity, and livelihoods across the region. And if you move across to the specific projects, we've divided up into three areas: that the projects that integrate climate adaptation into conservation of biodiversity, sustainable use of biodiversity or natural resources, and enabling tools. I know that most of you would have had lots of experience in developing projects, conservation projects in the region. Now, this project would like to see that a much stronger integration of climate adaptation into those programs. So that is really the key element of this grant, is us demonstrating the integration of climate adaptation into those key areas. Let me just elaborate further into some examples of those three areas: the conservation of biodiversity, sustainable use, and enabling tools. Those are just a list. They're just indicative. They're not exhaustive. It's quite open for the types of action that you're going to apply for. Those are some examples. For example, eradication of invasives, coastal and marine ecosystem resource management, threatened species management, vegetation habitat mapping for restoration and conservation actions, the community conserved areas, strengthen resource management. In terms of research, this component will not consider just specific research alone, but it should have clear actions that is tied to research. And on sustainable use, it's adapting climate adaptation into supporting livelihood option and ecosystems such as ecotourism, financing mechanism that supports climate adaptation and conservation, such as payment of ecosystem services. Some analysis, like I mentioned, but as long as it's supporting your actions in those either biodiversity or socioeconomic, and specific action that affects the species population or their habitats, and some of those other examples in sustainable use, the agriculture sector and fisheries. And of course, the enabling tools that is needed for you to do your actions, such as public awareness and education, training, and engaging support for your other partners in your interventions. So those are the kind of groupings, but as we all know, a lot of as we implement projects, all of the three are quite important in working your proposals and the interventions that are needed in terms of targeting biodiversity, including your sustainable use strategies and the enabling tools that needs to go with it. Just a pause to put us on the same page. The definition of nature-based solution, as most of you are aware, IUCN have just launched some standards and have come with some global defined definition so that we are all working on the same definition. So nature-based solution are actions to protect, sustainably manage, and restore natural and underlying modified ecosystem that address societal changes effectively and providing for human well-being and biodiversity benefit. Just to underline the importance of the action that need to address societal changes, human well-being, and biodiversity benefits. That is just a graph that puts that definition together. So at the bottom, you have the societal changes, and then you have the your ecosystem-based approaches and its benefits to human well-being and biodiversity. So in terms of projects that the grant will be looking at, it should be able to demonstrate multiple benefits. The benefits for climate change, the adaptation, benefits to biodiversity, and human well-being. And the demonstration of the link between your activities and outcomes to climate adaptation. I think we all aware of the challenge of climate change in the region. The Pacific, have been on the center stage globally in terms of the impact of climate change in our region. So we hope that this local component projects will be we will start demonstrating some of the projects that could approach the problem-solving approach for nature and society. That is broadened out to those areas from climate adaptation, disaster risk reduction, economic and social development, human health, food security, water security, and environmental degradation. Those are some nature-based solution examples or areas. So we have the ecosystem restoration approaches, such as control of invasives, artificial ecosystem for vegetation erosion control, issue-specific ecosystem-related approaches in terms of EBA mitigation and disaster risk reduction, and then the infrastructure. So it really looks at the nature-based infrastructure. For example, the reefs, our reef system, our natural infrastructure, the reef system, the mangroves. Is how do we strengthen our green or natural infrastructure. Then you have the EBA approaches. Some of these have been applied in our region, like coastal zone management, water resource management, and of course, specific site protection approaches, area-based conservation approaches, protected area, community-based, our LMMAs in the region. So those are some examples. Let me just share some examples close to us. The Fiji government, for those of you here in Fiji, as you all know, the government have been doing this hybrid sea walls. They are no longer building those hard concrete across our coastal villages, but they are rebuilding nature to be the coastal buffer. So they're reclaiming in the photo there, and then they plant whatever grass in the reclaimed landward side and plant mangroves and coral restoration towards the seaward side. That is, if mangrove can grow in those areas. So it's the Fiji government addressing those societal changes from climate change, this risk reduction, and then coming up with those hybrid seawall as their nature-based solution. And those are the benefits. In fact, for the Fiji government, this is a much cheaper option for them because it costs around 20,000 for their coastal hybrid versus more than 100 to 200,000 for a concrete infrastructure being built. And let's go to Palau. In terms of their protected areas, those are the list of challenges and their nature-based solution. We congratulate Palau for the great work they're doing in their protected area work, from legislation to network and sustainable financing and the list of benefits. So we hope that that gives you some ideas of your concepts. Let's think about the societal changes that your projects are going to address, your nature-based solution interventions, and the benefits that we would see. With that, I'll pause and I'll pass it to Amelia to facilitate question and answer on those sides.
Thank you, Etika. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to send in your questions. So we will take at least 3 to 4 questions before we move on to the next part of the presentation. Etika, so far we've received 3 questions. The first question, please, if you can just clarify, it's an anonymous attendee. The question goes, do academic institutions like USP qualify as an eligible grantee, and under which of the categories, 4 categories? So Etika, would you mind addressing that question? Naka?
The due diligence, there will be some due diligence which organizations will feel in terms of eligibility. It doesn't disqualify academic institution. For academic institution, I think as I mentioned, it cannot just fund pure research, research for actions. That's what I would answer at this stage. So it doesn't in terms of the due diligence, they will feel their organizational outline, and then we go from there. If I may, I can also pass it to other panelists that here can or Andy or Mason.
I think you've covered it well there, Etika.
Okay. We take the next one, Amelia.
Next question. So we have several participants requesting for the copy of the presentation, Etika. So is it possible to send them a copy of the presentation?
Yes, Amelia, we'll see how best. Either we put it up on the website or send.
Okay, thank you. Next question. When will the application forms be available?
We will put it up before the official launch next week.
Thank you.
The concept document.
So we'll just take, so the questions are coming in, Etika.
Okay.
So I will move very quickly. So the next question is it possible for a regional local organization to apply for each individual member? This is from Taoba.
Yep.
So it's possible for a regional local organization to apply for each individual member.
So it will be one organization applying for other member organizations. So it has provision for a lead organization to apply for on behalf of other partners. So yes, there.
So we'll just take the next three questions. The rest of the questions you can send in at the end of the presentation. So the next question is from Steve Brown in Samoa. So he says Samoa has 42 district environmental management plans that have existed for nearly 20 years, but still need to be implemented collectively with suitable fundings, possibly joining Tokelau in this approach, but using a 7G network and virtual approach. Would this be suitable for Kiwa if CBOs combined with NGOs and government ministries?
I guess the short answer is it's good. It will be good to see these joint approaches. Maybe just to specifically for some of these countries like Tokelau, it's one of the challenge also from IUCN to reach out to Tokelau. So it's good that Samoa is thinking of this technical support, but definitely we want to explore with Samoa this broad concept to see how we can qualify or the best approach. So very interesting.
Okay, so this will be the final question before we move on to continue the presentation. This is from Julian. I think the organization is Sea Walsh. Is it possible for civil society, which is not in the geographical scope of the call to apply, if the project is located in the Pacific eligible area? Or should this be carried out by a local public institution?
To be honest, I cannot, I will have to find out the answer to that question because the donors will have to give us their advice whether a overseas NGO can receive grant for the Pacific NGOs. Let's get back to them on that one, Amelia.
Okay. I think we can move on with the presentation. For those that are sending in questions, we have a panel who are also available to answer them, type in the answers while we continue with the presentation. Yes, Etika?
Can I just open it up for the other panelists?
Yes.
If they want to add some general comments or address any questions.
Hi, Ticket. Andrew here, if you can hear me.
Yep.
Fantastic. Just to note, I think, look, a general approach that Kiwa wants to take with the local component is if we are having, larger institutions, international NGOs, etc., very much wanting to partner with someone on the ground. I think that'll be looked on much more preferably. So just to add that layer.
Thanks, Amelia. We'll continue. we're doing well in terms of time. So so I can, okay, it's active again. So let's go to the, I think I've covered that one, the eligibility. It's good to see the questions coming in. In terms of organization, eligibility, we will shortly put a lot of the details up on the website at this stage before the launch on the 22nd. So you can do a better cross-check of the organization eligibility. We're still working with our team and partners to make sure that it's we agree with all of those specifics. So in terms of eligibility, just like every grants that you may have worked with, those are the core assessment criteria, the relevance, how feasible is your concept, the technical quality, and cost effectiveness. One of our core assessment will be how your projects will comply with the ESMS standards, and that will be part of the concept note. And on the right, there are lists of the usual activities that are not supported, such as purchasing land, activities that are illegal under local and international law. So I won't go into that, but those are some of those will be checked also in terms of the due diligence. The grant announcement. Let me at this stage just inform you in terms of the grants will open next week on the 22nd for all of the sizes of the grant, very small, small, and medium. You will notice that the very small and small, we are giving 3 months for this, only for this first announcement. This will give us more time to work with the civil society and NGOs in our capacity building work. We know it takes a bit of time to work with smaller NGOs in terms of assisting them in developing their concept. So for this first round, we'll open on the 22nd. The small and very small, they will close on September 30th. But for medium, they will close 2 months, a month earlier, which is August 31st. So when it opens June 22nd, so you have the months of July and August to put in the concept proposal. We want, as I mentioned, one of our goals is to make this a two-step process so that it gives you and us to do some quick assessment of your concept before the invitations to proposals, and we've listed the dates that we will be inviting full proposals. So for very small and small will be in November. You will know the results of your concept notes for those that will be invited to apply for full proposals. And then the medium grant on the 1st of October. And for both, you'll be given 2 months to develop your full proposal. So those are the, in terms of the announcement, the concept proposal, and the invitation. So basically, when the grant opens, you'll have 2 months to develop your concept. We review it for a month. we invite you to submit your proposal or develop your proposal for 2 months. We review and then go to the award of grants. So with that, we open it up again for any questions on those slides of, I know some have come through the organization ones. Maybe if there's any question on the application, the calls of proposal and the timings, if any. So Amelia, can you do any specific questions on that?
We just had a question that says, that asks, apologies, I'll just grab the question very quickly. Will there be technical support provided for CBOs that need it from Kiwa?
The question, yes, we will be available when they request for support. Yes.
A second question, Etika or Ken, if you can respond, like, is there likelihood of funding a pilot initiative where a research component is required as proof of concept?
Ken, you're there?
Hi, Tika. Hi, Amalia.
Hi.
So as Atika mentioned, the Kiwa initiative cannot support pure research. So if you have a research component to a project, you also need to be implementing some of the components of the research as part of the project, I think. So you need to make sure that there's some implementation on the ground accompanying a research project.
Thank you. So I guess that also answers Charlie's from Papua New Guinea, who is also asking for the same question. Next question, Etika, comes from Kwang from Timor-Leste. The development of the bigger project, which is the medium grant, normally takes more time. Are there any reasons why its time frame is shorter than that of the very small and small grants?
The answer is it's not shorter, they are the same. The only first round that we're given a bit of time for smaller NGOs. We think that 2 months is quite sufficient. For the medium grants, because they are bigger projects, we need to make sure they are completed by end of 2024 at the latest. So even the current time frame is going to be a challenge for the second round, which we hope to open again next year. So yes, so for the larger grants, if they're applying for 3 years, they need to be thinking of how realistic will they complete it by end of 2024, because we close everything in the beginning of 2025.
Thank you, Tika. Is there anyone else in the panel who would like to add on to the questions that have just been asked? Okay, if there's no further comments, we'll go to the next question. Etika, does the funding include the possibilities for project coordinators and trainers conducting capacity building and awareness raising programs for coral restoration or mangrove restoration projects?
Yes, the answer there, Amelia, is yes. As we presented it does include enabling activities like training and capacity building to meet their core objective. So yes, enabling, that would come under enabling activities.
Thank you. So I'll just take one final question before we move on with our presentation. This is from Sangeeta. Is it possible for an organization to be on multiple grants? Example, lead on one, but a sub-grantee on another, or a technical support to a local NGO?
Ken, you want to tackle that one?
Hi, Tika. Hi, Sangeeta. I think that is possible to apply for large international NGOs. What we really want to see is a strong association with local partners. So if the grant is really working substantially with local partners, then it should be okay. But I think in terms of multiple grants going to one organization, that's something that we'll need to just double check with the donors to make sure that that's possible. It's a good question.
Yep. Yes, Sangeeta, we'll check the details of the question. We're happy to email you some further clarification.
Thank you, Tika. Just another note to the attendees, the participants. You can send in your questions through the Kiwa initiative email address. We'll put that up in the chat box straight after this to have your more specific questions answered. Thank you, Tika. We can move on with the presentation.
No, just to acknowledge the questions coming in, especially for multiple application. We'll check those and respond to it. Okay, we move to the, I think the last sets of slide, Amelia. I pass it to you. Thank you. I'll operate it from here, Amelia.
Sure, thank you, Etika. I will basically be going through the application process. So this is the overview of the application process. So after the calls for proposal is issued, then we will be accepting submissions for step 2 on receiving concept notes and full proposal. Again, after this, I will elaborate more that we have a 2-step process of accepting concept notes and full proposal. So in actual fact, each interested parties or organizations will be required to submit short concept notes before we invite you. If your concept notes are successful, then we will invite you to submit a full proposal. So more on that I will discuss after this. After that, then we have the proposal screening and review. Then we have the grant award decision making. Then during this time, we will also be carrying out due diligence and ESMS, which is just a few assessments that we will need to carry out to ensure that we lower risks, especially financial risks, environmental and social management system risks. So this will be undertaken while we are making decisions for awarding grants. Once you pass those 2 steps, then we will go on to contracting, and then after the contract has been signed by the successful grantee, then we will start with the fund disbursement, and throughout the implementation of the activities of the project, we also have in place and an M&E system, monitoring and evaluation system and framework that we will utilize to ensure the successful implementation of the activities of the projects. And we will also include under the communications and knowledge management, capturing of lessons learned and sharing of these lessons learned during the implementation of the project. Next slide, please. So just as Etika had shared, this is the overview of the grant announcements and the deadlines that you need to look out for. Not to worry, this will also be available on our website. The IUCN Kiwa call for proposal website, which will also be launched on the official launching of the Kiwa initiative local projects component. So you have there the very small, medium grants and the durations and the concept proposal and closing dates and the proposal invitations, the second round of proposal, the proposal invitation. So after the assessments, the reviewing of the concept notes, then we will be sending out proposal invitations to successful concept notes. And just to reiterate, the concept development, we've given 2 months for organizations to develop your concept notes, and the review by the IUCN Kiwa team, and will be within 1 month. After that 1 month, within that 1 month, depending on how fast. So some responses you can receive within a week or 2 weeks at the latest after 1 month. After that, then you will be invited to submit your proposal, taking into account the instructions or the review that the steering committee and the IUCN Kiwa initiative team will be providing as well upon review and assessment of your concept notes. And then after the submission of your proposal, it will take another month for us to review and assess before we start awarding the contracts. Next slide, please. So this is just a basic overview of the concept note and the full proposal. So again, as I've mentioned, it's a 2-step process with the concept note, very brief. The main reason we have set it out in such a way is so that we do not exhaust too much time or invest too much time in putting together a proposal and having that proposal declined or rejected. So that's the idea that has come in creating this 2-step process. So only successful concept notes submitted will be invited to submit their full proposal. And you can see the depth and the detail required of information that is required between the two. So if you have any questions on this, you can also send us an email after this webinar. Thank you. Next slide, please, Etika. So, in proposal submission and review, all interested parties, again, as I've mentioned, will have to submit a concept note. There is a template provided, and this will all be available on the website. Again, only applicants with successful concept notes will be invited to submit the full proposal. Successful small and medium grant concept note applicants will receive their response with instructions to complete a full proposal. Thank you. And again, using the template that is provided. Next slide. With the grant award decisions, so full proposal, again, are subject to standard review process. After this, we will go into detail of the standard review process on relevance, feasibility, technical quality, and cost effectiveness. Again, there is no obligation for IUCN Oceania Regional Office to approve all full proposals for funding. So in the case, in the instance where you submit your proposal, IUCN ORO is not obliged to accept or to fund these proposals. So it's very important that whatever instructions or review comments that has been provided by the reviewing team, that you respond and address them efficiently, so to have higher chances of receiving the award. Once funding decisions have been made, all applicants will be notified by email. Again, the IUCN ORO also has the authority to grant give grants by invitation. So in the instance where they find a project or an activity that aligns with the objective of the Kiwa project, we can send a direct invitation to these organizations, but still we will have to document every process to ensure that we comply with eligibility and every other requirements in this process. And again, as I've mentioned, with due diligence and the environmental and social management system, this will refer to, we will be made sure that it aligns with IUCN and the Kiwa Initiative AFD guidelines, policies. So that will also be available on the website. Thank you. Next slide. So here's the assessment criteria details. As I've mentioned, this will also be made available on the website. There's the relevance, alignment with the Kiwa Initiative, local projects, investment priorities, that it also consider the national regional context and needs, so national priorities. Feasibility, there you have that it also considers the complexity and scope of the proposed work, that it considers applicant management capacity and technical capacity, and also considers synergies with other projects and initiatives. With technical quality, this is some of the things that they will look out for, that consider whether proposed objectives are achievable and contribute to the proposed goal. Also, whether proposed activities contribute to the achievement of proposed objectives, and whether the activities will generate proposed outputs and expected impacts, and also if the proposed budget is appropriate given the likely cost of the proposed work, and this is for cost effectiveness, and also to consider applicant capacity for financial management. So with the financial capacity for financial management, this will be determined under the due diligence assessment. So a successful, those that have passed the assessment at the proposal level will then be undertaking a due diligence process that will also review the capacity of for your financial management. And there is a due diligence process form template that is available that will also be needed to be completed by the applicants or the prospect grantees. So all of this will have to comply with the Kiwa environment and social management system standards and principles. Next slide, please. So with grant support, I believe this question has been popping up, or whether there will be assistance, or will there be assistance provided for capacity building. So with that, as our director had mentioned, we have an ESMS officer and capacity building officer that will be recruited, that will be on board soon. So they will be looking after this area. And after the launch next week, Tuesday, we will begin with our capacity building webinars. This will be weekly webinars held every Thursday at 10 a.m. Fiji time. And we will make the announcement prior, probably 2 days or a week prior to the scheduled date, that will focus on specific topics such as proposal concept development, ESMS, finance and technical reporting. So during these 1 hour sessions, we will have an interactive session with anyone that's interested or those that are in the process of developing the concept notes or proposal, and we will provide capacity to assist countries and organizations in these areas. So the first capacity building webinar will be on the 24th of June, Thursday, and it will be targeting assistance and building capacity on concept notes development. So if you're interested and if you feel that you lack in this skill for your organization, I welcome you to be part of this webinar, capacity building webinar, which we will be conducting next week, Thursday at 10 a.m. Fiji time. I will also send out a registration. You can also check online on our website or email us on the email provided, kiwainitiative@iucn.org. And we also welcome you to attend the official launch of the Kiwa Initiative local projects component on Tuesday, 22nd of June at 9 a.m. Fiji time. Thank you. Next slide, Etika. Also, that's that. So that's basically an overview of the application process. Now we give time to answer your questions. Thank you. Etika, if you'd like to add on to what I have just shared.
No, Amelia, now you are a member of the panel.
Okay.
I will provide the questions that have been asked to you panelists. So it'll be you, Ken, I think Andrews and Mason online there. So the first is do CBOs, do we need to register? Let me just read out the two main questions. One is, do CBOs need to register? And if you can elaborate a bit on due diligence.
Thank you. Etika, so you want me to answer these questions?
You or Ken?
Okay.
Anyone in the panel?
Yes, so I can just start off. So, the purpose of this due diligence is just to manage IUCN's exposure to risk associated with grant making. So basically, we'll be assessing the technical and financial capacity of the potential grantee. And it will take place between the grant award decisions and signing grant agreements. So that's at the final stages of awarding the grant. So we will have this due diligence process before the grant is awarded. So in practice, it can often be completed in parallel with drawing up the grant agreements, but must be completed prior to their signing. So this is also a deal breaker for organizations, especially if they're in the final stages of having their grants awarded. So there's a standard due diligence assessment form that's available, and this will be required of the applicants or the prospect grantee to complete and submit before any grant may be rewarded. Thank you. Ken, maybe you can add on?
Amelia, I think you captured it. The due diligence is just submitting the relevant paperwork to show that you've got the capacity to manage the grant financially and administratively and legally.
Thank you.
Amelia, I might jump in there if I could.
Sure, Andrew.
Just to note, look, there's been a couple of questions around that, whether a CBO needs to be registered. If they're going to be receiving the grant, they'll need to be registered. But look, of course, they can work with a partner who is registered, and that often happens. So, as we said before, we're very keen for community, partners to be the drivers of the project. They may not be able to do the administrative and financial side of the house, so that's where they can partner up with someone else as well. And I'll just take the opportunity, because I have to jump out in a second. A couple of questions around that, around whether industry associations, faith-based organisations are going to be eligible. And I think certainly for the industry associations, if they're incorporated as an association, or e.g. a not-for-profit, then I think that should be fine. We can't, unfortunately, grant directly to businesses, but associations that are set up with a non-for-profit charter should be fine. Faith-based organisations, obviously, as well. There's a question about private consultants. They won't be able to apply for a grant themselves, but they can certainly support another grant maker, a community organisation or an NGO. They can certainly be part of the bid in and of itself. So just wanted to touch on those ones.
I think that covers registration due diligence. There's a question here whether they can submit drafts. I think the answer to that is not officially to IUCN, because we need to only receive final submissions. But in terms of the capacity building sessions, you can bring up specific areas that you need input in. There was also a question, Amelia, on number of grants for medium, small, and very small. The answer to that question, that we do have target numbers that we're looking at, but the bottom line really is the quality of proposals that are received. We do have a grant strategy in terms of targets, but this will be moving targets as after the first call, we would have a good idea of how we will manage the different types of grants moving forward. The other question coming in, can a project be 100% granted? And should the organization bring co-financing? Can they be 100% granted, and is co-financing needed? Ken, you want to respond to that?
I might jump in there, Atika. It's Andrew here, colleagues. I think the short answer is yes, grants can be 100% funded. Co-financing or partnering in any other way with other projects happening, bringing other investment streams in is also, that'd be looked favourably upon. But we also fully expect to have a number of grants where it's just really for that intervention in a community, etc. Okay.
Okay, good one.
Etika,
Yep.
so there's another question that's, probably how many years registered should an organization be legally registered before to be eligible?
I don't think it matters, Amelia, as long as they're registered legally.
As long as they're registered.
Yep. And a question coming in on how there will be multiple. The answer is yes. So this is the call for proposal. We are targeting to make 1 million grant because of the implementation, which is maximum 3 years. For excuse me, for small and very small, we are looking at making another 4 calls throughout the period until 2024. So yes, there will be more calls that will open.
Thank you, Tika. I think this is a good question. From Carl Probert, are we able to get feedback on concept notes and improve on this where necessary?
Yeah, I think I answered, Amelia. Officially, IUCN cannot be receiving drafts of proposal. We only will consider the final proposal, but through capacity building, they can discuss it with us. There's definitely room for support in capacity building.
Thank you, Carl. Hope that answers your question.
I think those are the questions, Amelia.
Yeah.
Have come through. So with that, we've just reached our 12 o'clock mark. We don't want to keep these sessions too long since it will be ongoing session. So at this juncture, we want to finish our first awareness for Kiwa grant. I hope you have a brief idea of the big picture of Kiwa, as in the 3 components, and how this local projects component fit and its focus. Let me just reiterate, it really targets the local projects and implementation, and how the types of activities. I hope you'll go away with some information on the type of activities and what are the core elements that you should take away and look at your concept, which is nature-based solutions and climate adaptation. I think it's a timely opportunity now for us in the Pacific. We've been doing a lot of programs, but with climate change, and this is an opportunity to start demonstrating it at a local level. So with that, a word of thanks on behalf of our Regional Director Mason, who have said the word of welcome on behalf of AFD, the donors that would be participating today. Thank you very much. It's been a very high number of participants. At one point, we were hitting 88, more than 80. So that showed a lot of interest. And we'll have exactly the same sessions tomorrow. You can come with some new question, or if you want to send new questions ahead. Just a few reminders on the I think the price, the wine price, and any other. Can I pass it back to you, Amelia? On
Yes. So the moment everyone has been waiting for, I guess. So we've received quite a few number of correct answers. So I'm going to select the winner of today's webinar awareness workshop. And the winner is Fiji WCS. Sangita. So if Sangita, if you are here, you can contact us and we'll be glad to send you your wine. So fortunately, Sangita is in Fiji, so we'll find a way to drop off your price with you. Thank you, Tika. And thank you everyone for your answers.
Any other logistical matters for tomorrow's meeting? That's the end of today. Registration and Zoom, they're using the same. Can you just go through any other logistics?
So it's, I believe everyone has been sent both the links for the webinar today and tomorrow. So I guess everything is fine for now. And there's no additional comments from our end. Thank you, Tika. And for any unanswered questions, we can address them throughout today. And again, as you've received the email address, you can forward your questions through the email address that has been sent to Binaka.
Okay, Binaka, everyone, and bye for now. And we'll see you back here tomorrow. Please, if you know of any other partners that may have missed the session today, it's a general awareness to attend tomorrow, and then we'll move into some detailed capacity building for the grant next week after the launch on the 22nd. So, Binaka Bakalebu, appreciate your participation and stay safe. Bagaimana?
Climate change is among the major challenges faced by communities, especially in the Pacific. We urgently need to adapt. The Kiwa initiative believes nature-based solutions help adapt to climate change and preserve biodiversity for the well-being of communities. Food security, health, disaster mitigation, economic resilience, closing the gender gap. Nature-based solutions for climate change adaptation come with many benefits. Let's support nature, humbly, responsibly, respectfully, with solidarity with the people of the Pacific. Today and tomorrow, let's build the Kiwa Initiative community together. Climate change is among the major challenges faced by communities, especially in the Pacific. We urgently need to adapt. The Kiwa initiative believes nature-based solutions help adapt to climate change and preserve biodiversity for the well-being of communities. Food security, health, disaster mitigation, economic resilience, closing the gender gap. Nature-based solutions for climate change adaptation come with many benefits. Let's support nature, humbly, responsibly, respectfully, with solidarity with the people of the Pacific. Today and tomorrow, let's build the Kiwa Initiative community together. Climate change is among the major challenges faced by communities, especially in the Pacific. We urgently need to adapt. The Kiwa initiative believes nature-based solutions help adapt to climate change and preserve biodiversity for the well-being of communities. Food security, health, disaster mitigation, economic resilience, closing the gender gap. Nature-based solutions for climate change adaptation come with many benefits. Let's support nature, humbly, responsibly, respectfully, with solidarity with the people of the Pacific. Today and tomorrow, let's build the Kiwa Initiative community together.